Emily and I are now going to teach you how to take blood pressure.
It's a procedure you're probably already familiar with. It's what the doctors and nurses do when you go in to get your annual checkup.
Two pieces of equipment are used when taking blood pressure. One is the stethoscope.
And the second is the sphygmomanometer, otherwise known as the blood pressure cuff.
Now I'm going to demonstrate how to take blood pressure on Emily's arm. The first thing you need to do is locate her brachial artery. This is the artery in the crux of her elbow between the upper arm and the lower arm. When I place the stethoscope on her brachial artery and hold it down, I can hear her pulse.
When you take someone's pulse, what you're actually listening to is the pressure wave that's generated by blood flow flowing through the arteries of the body. Average human heart rate is about 72 beats per minute.
The next thing I need to do is put the blood pressure cuff on her upper arm. Once that is secure, I need to make sure that the stethoscope again remains on her brachial artery. Before I begin pumping, I need to make sure that this valve is closed. When I'm sure of this, I can go ahead and inflate the blood pressure cuff to approximately 160 to 180 millimeters of mercury. At this blood pressure, blood flow through the brachial artery has stopped. When this has happened, I will loosen the valve and slowly deflate the blood pressure cuff. While doing this, I need to listen very carefully. When I first hear a heartbeat, I will note the blood pressure gauge. This will be the systolic pressure, and then this indicates the first flow of blood through the brachial artery. I will continue to release the pressure, and when the sound disappears, I will note again this pressure on the gauge. This is the diastolic pressure and indicates that the brachial artery is again completely open. So now I will actually go ahead and take Emily's blood pressure. The blood pressure cuff is on her upper arm, and the stethoscope is over her brachial artery. The valve is closed. I'm inflating the blood pressure cuff to 160 millimeters of mercury. I loosen the valve and slowly release the blood pressure. When I hear the first sound, I note the systolic pressure. When I hear the sound disappear, I note the diastolic pressure. And Emily's blood pressure is 124 over 84.
Thank you. Normal blood pressure readings are around 120 over 80. 120 represents the systolic pressure, and 80 represents the diastolic pressure. Systole, as indicated by the systolic pressure, is when it's the pressure generated when your heart muscle contracts. Diastole, as indicated by the diastolic pressure, is when the heart muscle is relaxing between heartbeats. Now you also have all sorts of electronic blood pressure gauges, such as the one Chrissy's using. Looks like this. You can purchase these through any medical supply store or a local pharmacy, and they're much easier to use than a stethoscope and a sphygmomanometer. To use one of these units, you insert your index finger in the finger cuff, making sure it's a snug but not a tight fit. Then you just push the start button. The nice things about these units are that not only will you get a blood pressure reading, but you'll get your heart rate as well. You'll note that as Chrissy's taking her reading, she is keeping perfectly still, and she's keeping her hand at her heart level. If her hand is waving around or she's talking to a friend, she's going to get an inaccurate reading. And according to the unit, her blood pressure and her pulse are well within normal boundaries.